I'm just walking around the studio, just checking everything out. I've been to Buffalo. First of all, hello, Buffalo.
Yes. Tell them where you're from and all that. Look, they're bringing me all. Is this all the bio stuff? Is that what that is?
That's for me.
That's for you. All right.
Leroy, folks know me here, Political Jones. I've been on the air here 5 years. Starting out with the commentary for the common folk.
Right.
Was blessed to start now. I have a 30-minute show. It's been on for a year also, the Political Jones show. And I've been to Buffalo, came for the Hall of Fame back in 2010. Fell in love with the city. The folks have been, the support has been fabulous. I'm just an old country boy from North Carolina.
Nobody's country from North Carolina anymore.
No, brother.
What part of North Carolina?
I'm from a small town in the hills called Lenoir, as they would say.
I went to college in Salisbury.
Oh, Livingston.
Yeah.
Why would the North Carolina search
but so we know what's up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The Eagles and the Bears.
Yes, we'll meet you on the field.
Absolutely.
But I was in North Carolina. It's funny you say that. I don't often get to North Carolina now, and I was there for Democratic National Convention.
I was there too.
Wow. So
it was so many people there. It was like old homework for me.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful.
I grew up about an hour from Lenoir. It's like Westwood, Broad Hill Furniture. I'm a straight hillbilly. My granddad and dad, they had that big old black kettle still up in the woods, and so that pure stuff that they say back in the day.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, we're from I'm a hillbilly.
I don't know if we can call it that anymore, because I tell you why. Like I said, I've been in Charlotte, constantly for conventions, but every time I'm there, I never have a chance to get around. You're in, you're out. Yeah. This time I had a little bit more chance, and I was just surprised of the progress that is happening there. So when people now, and I did a conference last night where I spoke at, and I said, where people used to call that, the South, and you had this impression. Totally different.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's happening, I think, across the country, and across the Switzerland in North Carolina, you have a lot of growth. And I think that, things change. I mean, the one thing you have changed in North Carolina is the demographic. And that's, you can see that in the election.
Yes.
The Latino community has increased. You have a lot of transplants that are living there in North Carolina that are not from North Carolina.
I saw a whole lot of people from Buffalo.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. From Buffalo, and Charlotte's a big contingent. And I think it's because of the banking industry, because it's right there.
Yes.
And I think across the state, I mean, I love North Carolina. Even though I've lived in the Washington area since '87, someone laughed. They said, "You never call it your home." I said, "No, I'm from North Carolina. That's my home." My poor kids, they like that. They said, "Well, they know." Basically, I said, "My son," I said, "when you graduate." I said, "Who was that big black 6'1", 250-pound black man moonwalking?" I said, "It's your daddy moonwalking back south."
Is that where you want to end up?
Yeah, I want to go back south. But I mean, and right now, I think for me, I just love being in the south. But I love being in Buffalo and being on WUFO 1080. Right?
I mean, the commercial is right there now. But you're now in Washington, D.C. I know you're here for the expo. We're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yes.
But I think that you have such a great influence with your show and with everything that you do. What got you doing what you're doing right now?
Well, I don't have much time, but I can make it short.
It's all right.
Look,
we got time.
Yeah, the beauty of it is, I don't want to take up any time, but the beauty, I've been blessed. My mom was my first political advisor, and she told me about the world of politics and life. And
was she into politics at all?
She just liked watching. She was, my mom had me, and she's gone on. I mean, I was blessed to have her, and she was such a big influence in my life. If you folks want to know about a story about my mom, they did end up doing an article about me, and it ended up being a story about a love note left to my mom, and it's in the Ebony. If you go to ebony.com and put in Political Jones or Leroy Jones Jr., you'll see the story. And when I did the interview, I didn't realize it was going to be a story about her, but that's my bowl, my base, as they would say. But interesting enough, I decided to get into politics. I worked on the House side and the U.S. Senator from North Carolina, Terry Sanford. Then I worked on the House. I worked on Congressman Mel Watt's first campaign. I drove him around for a year.
Wow.
And then I left his office and went and worked in the Clinton White House. So I'd always wanted to be in politics, and I had the opportunity to, and then, going to work in the White House. When I got the job at the White House, the Clinton administration, my mom, never forget, my mom was laughing. I said, "Mom, I just, I got the job offer, and I said, can I call my mother and tell her?" They said, "Yeah, you want us to call?" I said, "No, I'll call her." and literally, I got the job, and this is the historical story. When I got the job, you did the security clearance. So all the folks were going back home to my hometown, and all the FBI agents. And so my mom was getting all these calls, and she's like, "Nah, don't worry about that."
You did something wrong.
My mom was like, "He getting that security clearance so he can talk to President Clinton and do all that stuff." So she was like, "Yeah, like 007." I'm like, "Oh Lord." So it was really cool in that sense, because I don't think, and she said to me, "I don't think you'll understand what it really meant for you to do that." Until you get older, and tell your children. And she's right. I think I appreciate it more now. But one of the things that happened, though, a lot of people, when I got the job, was like, "Well, you L. Jones, you Leroy, you working all these things." And I said, "No, I'm gonna tell y'all something. My name is Leroy, Leroy Jr., Little Leroy, is what they call me. I'm never gonna change." The people. That's part of the reason with the commentary show. When I started, I was raised by common folk, people, hardworking people. These are people that made me, gave me my base, and made me who I am. And I said, ultimately, that's my way of always saying, when I say commentary for commentary, people say, "You say so?" Yeah, because I'm speaking up for those folks.
That's right.
I was talking about that 5 years ago. These people, those are the people that raised me.
Yes.
It ain't these people, those people.
Yes.
That's me. That's who I am. And ultimately, I've been blessed. And it's our blessing. I have to admit, the road, the path to get to here, I had to get on my knees and let go and let God. And like all these things opened up to me because I had to sit still and humble myself. So it's been a journey, and it's a continuing journey. But I'm so glad, and like I said, the folks here at UFO 1080, I can't even, the folks in Buffalo, I can't even begin to tell you thank you for your support.
I'm really, I mean, it was a surprise when I saw you in the hallway, so I appreciate you spending some time.
Oh, absolutely.
We've never met. I'm an elected official here. I cover most of the downtown district of the city of Buffalo, the Ellicott district, and the chair of our legislative committee here. And the former school board member, been involved, and not involved in politics. This is the odd thing, is that my heart is just what you said about our people. And so there are times that I'm kind of the outsider in politics because I don't do the backroom deals. I think everything should be done in the front room in front of everybody. Even if they get upset, let them know, give them a voice. And so so to hear someone who works so closely, I guess I can understand why Bill Clinton did so well, because I keep saying to people, all people need a voice, and some people don't know that they have a voice.
Well, I'll tell you this, I mean, I'm not like I was an intimate insider. I mean, I was working there. I had exposure to the folks, and I think at times I don't realize how close I was to all of it. Because I didn't take it that way. I took it. There were times that when I worked at the White House, people were looking at me like, "Who do you think you are?" And, Leroy, you don't want to just be known for black issues. So I'm gonna tell you something. I can do everything, but I'm not here. I can't speak up because I'm a black man. That's what I'm supposed to do. So ultimately, I have perspective that none of these folks have. And I'll give you an example. I worked, the job I worked over in drug policy in the drug czar's office. I started with Dr. Lee Brown, great man. Then I worked with General Barry McCaffrey, who was very interesting. I had to save this story about him in my book, but it was interesting working there. And it was around the time.
What were you doing?
I was the legislative. I worked the legislative affairs. So literally, the White House does a lot. But I did, I was representing. I went to the Senate and the House and represented the president's position on drug policy. Okay. And there would be times that I would speak up and say things that people would look at me, "You can't." So I was like, "Yes, I can." I said, "That's why I'm here." And I said, "Now, did that help me after I left?" Probably not. But at the end of the day, the one thing I tell people is I can look in the mirror every night. Yes. And I can sleep with that. And at times, politics, like I said, is not people. It's a game. It is. But I think that for folks, you can't turn your backs on it because the things you complain about, like. If you don't get involved, you're going to get played. And like I said, for you on a local level, and I tell folks this, when Tip O'Neill said back in the day, politics is local, it's absolutely true. You can't go and get President Obama, as I tell people, saying to folks, Barack, Michelle, and the kids ain't coming by your house. Right, exactly. Doesn't mean you don't vote or support him or Governor Romney, whoever you may want to support. The deal is this. Your city council, your state rep, state, here, your congressman, you can grab them and say, "Hey, what's going on?" And I ask you this, and I've been telling folks, if 50 people show up at a city council meeting,
it means a lot.
You're going to see what's going on.
You daggone straight.
Even the mayor's going to want to know what's up.
Daggone straight.
Now, if 30 people show up at a hearing on the Hill, it's sort of like whatever. Right. If 35 or 40 people show up at his district office, he's going to wonder what's up. And that's why people have to be, when you start talking about, I'm not voting because I'm look, no politician can promise you to do anything. Part of the deal is what are you going to do for yourself, and you got to hold people accountable. Yes. And working in politics, I'm telling you, if you don't show up and have your voice heard, then nobody's going to think about you because there's too many things going on. And I hate people get upset about that, but I'm telling you, if 40 people show up at a city council meeting, you're going to be like, hold on, what's up?
Now, you were not in Buffalo last week. You have no idea what we talked about on the show. One of the things that I talked about was just what you're talking about. I said, you can't send me to City Hall and expect me to get it done if you don't show up. And then I also acknowledge, though, at times elected officials don't educate people enough on the issues to let them know. So I apologized and said, beginning next week, we are actually going to bring the agenda of our city council committee meetings and say, these are the items we're talking about. Right now, the people who show up at these hearings, we had a problem with, let's say, one of the things I'm working on, cat license, because I get a whole lot of calls from our community saying, the city won't pick up my cat because we don't have a license. But other communities, they show up and say, don't put a license on my cat. Right. But if not one person from a community who wants it shows up, it ties the hand of the elected official, and then they say nothing gets done. Well, it doesn't get done the way you want it to because we are not showing up. Like you said, 30. Heck, in Buffalo, 4 people at a common council meeting. I think 7 people came on the issue last week that I have a resolution on, and it was in the paper. Folks go against such. It wasn't that the folks went, the 7 people did, and because the 20 people who wanted don't show up.
Well, look, let's be real. Look, you got 30 people at the barbershop this weekend raising sand, talking about what they would do if they was there. Now, if I was running it, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to tell you, and then and the other thing is, when you get there, don't be scared.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know what's, wait a minute. When I saw you down the barbershop, homeboy, I thought you was Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, President Barack Obama. You was eloquent.
So how do you get there? And you have done this on a national level. How do you get? And obviously, this is not just a Buffalo problem.
No, that's what I'm saying. This, coming here, like I said, I'm not the first to say I'm versed in all the issues. But look, politics, the problems we have in the black community across the board and across the country is the same.
Yes, sir.
People dealing with jobs, education, safety, and just what's going on, because there's an uncertainty you hear out there now and what people are feeling. And I think we have a generation, people feel uncertain now that never felt it. Now, the black community, we always knew what it was to be pressed.
Exactly.
Now what's happened for the first time, you have folks that's like, wait a minute, you mean it's like this? This is what y'all were dealing with? Yeah. So that's why you see a lot of the backlash and a lot of the anger and resentment, because it's a sense of why I should have it this way. But in reality, it's tough for everybody.
But I see the backlash, but I don't see the organization with the backlash. Here's the problem. Yes. Last year, the arts community, who's very organized, they came to the council and said, this is how much money we want out of your pockets, out of your discretionary funds. Right. One council member carried that flag and got them that money. This year, I said, we have a safety issue. We've got all these volunteers on the ground. We need to be helping them to keep our community safe. Now, if you want to do something for the arts, that's fine, but you got to do just as much. But here's the point. I would have loved had our folks stood up and said that. Yeah. But we're not yet organized enough. And part of the problem is we're fighting against each other instead of organizing like the arts community does. Or I don't know if you guys deal with fracking. I call it the freaking fracking people. That was they come around and say, don't drill into the ground for this and that. They're very organized. They have their facts together. They know that they elect us and that they can bring controversy to an issue and bring facts to an issue. How do we get our people to that point?
Look, man, that's above my pay grade. If I had enough money for that, I'd probably be the Mac Daddy. But I'm going to tell you, I think what it is, personally, I think at a certain point, folks have to, if you can go do stuff in your church and do things in your organization, I think people always felt like politics for so long was not a part, they were not part of the process.
Say it.
And I think that one of the things I saw that when I just told people I was going to do what I was going to do, the things, when I went back and worked for Congressman White, I worked for free. Because because it was a campaign, I didn't have a lot of money. I told them, I said, as long as y'all could pay for me to eat, it was near my home, so I would have stayed for free, and I didn't get paid for a year. But I worked on the campaign and ended up he offered me a job afterwards. A lot of times you can't afford it. I couldn't really afford it, but I had the resources around me to do it. I was at home, and those are the type of things you expose yourself to that. Now my kids, they've grown up around politics. You know, whether it's, you know, Congress people, being around the White House, whatever, they don't get a chance to say. They were young before they was in the White House, but being around Congress, being around politics, so it's in their blood. And I think to a certain extent, you have to make sure that children are exposed to politics and make them understand on a local level, and then gradually go up. And don't get the aspirations. I think for a lot of kids now, and that's a whole bigger issue too, but I think we cannot lower the aspirations for them and what they can do. You can't tell your kid, no, that's too much for you.
That's
I mean,
right.
I grew up and I got colored on my birth certificate.
Wow.
And ultimately, my parents, not knowing to a certain extent, they were very encouraging of what I was doing. But I had my father, he was like, he didn't understand all of it because he was born in the segregated South and segregation in the 30s. So his thing was, okay, do what you got to do, but he didn't really know. I mean, it wasn't like I had parents that they was contributing money, got me hooked up. I literally walked to these places, started, people didn't know who I was, and I was able with time to build it and get the expertise, and it's God. I mean, I guess it's a journey.
Now, I'm a pastor in this city also.
Yes.
And the first pastor ever elected to public office 10 years ago. First full-time pastor.
And I know that's an interesting dynamic for you too, as a minister in politics and stuff.
When I ran for school board, they tried to bang my head in, but when I ran for council member, they really tried to bang my head in.
Absolutely.
And you know, hearing people, and I won overwhelmingly because where, like you said, politics is in your blood. Politics for me is in my heart.
Yes.
It's so in my heart to give people the voice and not have to compromise, because I'm still a pastor.
Yeah.
And my bread is buttered as a pastor.
Yes.
And so when people would say, and I didn't understand this, and I still don't, how can you serve two gods? I don't serve two gods. I don't serve two masters. I serve one.
Yes.
And whether I'm in City Hall, whether I'm in a committee meeting, or whether no matter where I'm at, I am still a representative of the king.
Yes.
And I don't mean the worldly king. And so I think that, especially in this area now, in the South, that this is not a huge deal. I mean, you got ministers all involved in it.
Yes, you do.
We broke the mold here.
Yes.
And I keep telling people, when I get done, I want to walk out with my integrity. So when I make a decision, it's not based on, can I win another election? Because I never worry about another election. I worry about, are the least, the lost, the left behind being taken care of. And people will say to me, I didn't see, because I'm not a real good politician, you know, there's been decisions I made, and then at the end, people would say, when is your fundraiser? And I didn't connect that, you know?
Right.
And I would go, I don't have a fundraiser. I'm not sure what you mean. But it was, I'm going to keep you in office so that you can continue making these. I don't want that. I don't want to look toward the next election. I got to look toward the next day.
Well, and to be honest with you, that in itself is the paradox of politics, especially in the national level, because of the money. And now with the super PACs and the like, you got to think, these super PACs, part of what's going on too is the monies are going to affect these Senate races and these House races. And there's so much money. I mean, huge amounts of money.
Right.
And it's going to change the whole dynamic of what's going on. And I think that's why it's important for folks to be involved in the process and to understand it. The thing you have to remember, the money is fine, but at the end of the day, whoever has the most votes wins. If you don't vote, if you allow people, we talked about voter suppression. You know, that's something we talk about and people talking about. My attitude is this: all these people that died for our community for the right to vote, and more importantly, think about it. If someone's trying to take something from you, then you know it's worth something. Now, if they're trying to take your paycheck and say they're going to cut your money, you're going to be up there raising sand.
Yes.
So if you're going to tell me that a constitutional right that you have as a citizen and a responsibility, if somebody's trying to take that from you, you're not going to get upset and be just as mad, because they're taking money out of your hands. Because if the tax breaks go up, if you don't get the services you want, you got to pay more. That's money out of your pocket.
Yes.
If they got stand your ground laws that put that people get that are used to hurt people, your family member may be hurt, you may be hurt, you're going to have a loss. And it's a greater loss than money. Those things are all tied together. Just like you said, everything is tied together. There's a reason why they never wanted us, black community, to vote back in the day. Because with vote, you have power. And when they start doing the things to take that power from you, you still start thinking, wait a minute. And then on the other hand, you have people of like mind across the board. You can't allow yourself to get caught up in what I say, the hype. That's why you have to take the time to read everything and look at everything. There's no good and bad in politics. I mean, if you talk about Republicans and Democrats, you got good, bad. It's what it is.
We're in a society right now that we get everything quick. You know,
Yes.
we get our food quick. We get everything quick, and so even our information about who to vote for, we get quick. You were here when the controller was here. I made him explain what does a controller do. Because it cannot just be about I saw you at my church. It needs to be about from the knowledge. And one of the things that I fought the leaders in our communities, we don't set out an agenda of what we want before we hear what they're willing to give.
Right.
And as a pastor, anybody comes to True Bethel, I already have a list of here is where I'm at. Tell me where you're at on them, and I'll ask them publicly. You know, where you at on this issue? Where you at on cutting the child care? Let me get them on the record. It might be just our record, but I got you on the record.
Right.
Now a year later, when you cut it, I'm going to remind you of what you said and try to get you to overturn it by making sure that you understand you lied to me then.
Right.
And this is not usually what occurs, and I think that there are elected officials who count on that not occurring. You elect me and forget me. That's all I want. Elect me and forget me, and I'll be back to you in 2 or 4 years, whatever the term is.
Come to the
but
church.
it hasn't done exactly. It hasn't done our people any good. And that's the, you know, we talk about whether term limits are good, whether they're not. You know, I'm kind of torn on that issue. I think in some areas you need somebody who has the experience, but in being in politics now, I can see how just endless terms can make someone make decisions based on this is my career now and I need to feed my kids.
My thing with terminals has always been that you're a temporary employee, and anytime you can get ejected by the voters.
That's right.
And my thing is, if the voters are not going to be interested in doing what they, you know, to go out and vote, then you left with what you choose.
Yeah.
So I've always felt strongly about that. I mean, I know there's a lot of people feel differently, but I think what happens sometimes with that, you do lose institution memory. But what happens a lot of times is that you have people that are working in these institutions that are there, civil service and back. And I think that, you know, people feel very strongly one way or the other. But personally, for me, I feel like there is term limits every time you go to vote. If people get out and vote, if they don't want you, they can get rid of you if they want to vote you out. And see, that to me, that doesn't force people to be participating in the process. And clearly, that's the problem. I mean, and I think one of the things in 2008 that was done with President Obama's election, it made a lot of people think politics was cool. Well, you still see the remnants of that. I think the problem for a lot of folks is they don't realize the process. It doesn't happen overnight. They were waiting that it was going to be like poof. He's here. He can do whatever he wants. It doesn't work like that. He's just president. You got a Congress. You got a Senate. I mean, think, like I told someone, you talking about Supreme Court. You think about there's no people of color.
Well, on the Supreme Court. Oh, I thought you were going to say the Supreme Court. I was going to say, what do you call it?
No. I'm talking about the Senate.
You might be right.
No, I ain't talking about Clarence. Clarence is a whole other show. That brother, he's from South. We're going to call him brother. But that's a whole other show. I ain't going to get into that with Clarence. That's a whole other show. But what I'm saying is, there's no people of color in the Senate. And that changes the dynamic. When you're in a room and there's nobody of color that has walked that road and understands the dynamic, it changes everything. But
you know, almost all senators are very wealthy and have a lot of PACs behind them and a lot of money.
But that's it. At the same time, it changes the dynamic. Right. And that's why it's important for folks to be involved in the process and be participating in voting and doing the things necessary, because ultimately it can be done. But it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of luck. Because, you know, politics, as you know, is a lot of luck. But I think for a lot of folks right now, like you said, everything's instant. And you have, you know, whether it's, and I'm on Twitter and I do the social media. And I'm on Twitter, by the way, Political Jones.
Political Jones.
Yeah, Political Jones. Yeah, one word. It's all Political Jones. But one of the things that I tell folks is that you can't think in politics it's going to happen overnight. It's a process. It's like everything else. And it's hard for folks. I mean, you can microwave it or you can cook it. And sometimes the microwave is good. But I know when I go home and I want a home cooked meal, I want it cooked. I want to put their feet in and it tastes good.
Buffalo is a microwave town, so we depend on our ancestors who are here, or those who came from the South to teach us how to cook it, baby. Because you can microwave it, but it's nothing like cooking.
I got a question to ask both of you.
All right.
Is an underground?
I'm gonna let you ask me a question on my show. I'm gonna allow that for a second.
Is the underground tone going that some black preachers are asking their congregations to stay home on election day because of the same-sex bill.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, I think any time that, now, I don't know if you're able to hear in the background, what the question was is that there are some African American preachers who are asking congregation members to stay home and not vote based on President Obama's stance on same-sex marriage and some on abortion. And so my answer, and I'm never going to let you ask me a question on air again, yeah, but my stance is that asking anybody to stay home is almost criminal. We fought for this right to vote, and to tell people not to make a choice is criminal. I endorse people as Darius Pridgen. I don't endorse people as the pastor of True Bethel Baptist Church. My job in True Bethel is to deal with theocracy, is to deal with the study of God, is to deal with what I believe out of that Bible. My job as Darius Pridgen, as an individual citizen, I can do whatever the heck I want to do. I don't lose my rights because I'm a pastor. But I think that when you tell people not to vote, not to make a choice, you're telling them then you got to deal with whatever you get. And although I might not, I don't agree with everything any man says. The Bible tells us not to trust any man, you trust God. So I don't know of one candidate that if I listened to everything they said that I would agree with. But hey, if you don't like what Barack is saying, go vote for Romney. But go and vote. But to do nothing, I think is criminal. Brother Jones?
I agree. I mean, it was funny, I heard Reverend Al talk about this issue, and he said, he said have the preachers to say all this, to have them to ask to also return the tithes that these people are giving, the parishioners are giving. He said that would probably shake some of them up. But I think, like I said, I agree. I said it's downright irresponsible to have people not to vote, because clearly I don't have, what you agree to is on you. I can't tell you what you should do and how to live your life and how you should vote, but you have to vote. My whole thing is, for our community, seeing the things we've seen, you have to vote. If you want to vote for whoever, fine, but you better vote, because I'm telling you right now, don't cry 2 or 3 years down the road when you see all the things that are happening. You say, well, how's happening? And you didn't become part of the process. I'm telling folks right now, and even if you'll come to Expo, I'd love to see you guys. But if you're not registered to vote, you're talking about not voting, I don't want to hear it. I'm being respectful.
Right.
But I think that you're taking up time for folks that are really involved in the process to educate. Because at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. Ultimately, as a voter, you have just as much power as the politician, because your vote, one vote can get you in or out.
Hey, and we've seen that.
You have. So, I mean, I think that you have to keep reminding yourself, if people are telling you not to vote, why is that? And if people are trying to stop you from voting, why is that? If they were trying to stop you from getting in the club or go to get something to eat or getting whatever, brothers be raised and saying, talking about, man, they playing me, man, what's up with that?
Exactly.
So if they're trying to stop you from voting, what's up with that?
You got to vote. I mean, what's your feeling on it?
As I said, I don't agree with everything Obama says or does, but we have to get out and vote, because so many people have paid their lives for this issue.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that some of that, and the lines are lit up, and I haven't even given out the number.